Hey, everybody, I'm Lisa Campion, and this is the Miracle of Healing. I'm so excited to introduce to you a truly innovative voice in the world of emotional healing. Today, we have Cedric Bertelli. He's the co founder and director of the Emotional Health Institute and co developer of something called Emotional Resolution, also sometimes known as EmRes for short. And when I started really studying up on his about this work, I really knew we had to have this conversation. And here's what's so fascinating about this approach. We've all been taught how to manage our emotions, right? Sort of cope with them, breathe through them, talk about them. But what if we could really resolve them permanently? What if those old emotional patterns that keep showing up in our lives could be cleared at the root? And that's exactly what EmRes does. It's a neurosomatic process rooted in neuroscience that helps people resolve the underlying implicit memories triggering their emotional reactions. Maybe that's anxiety, anger, trauma responses that just won't budge. So, we're going to talk today with Cedric about his own journey to this work, which is really a remarkable story, and how he went from the world of hospitality and culinary arts to becoming a pioneer in emotional health. It's a really beautiful story. So, welcome, Cedric.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with your story. Tell us where you started and what happened to get you here.
Well, at the very beginning, I was born in a very small village, 80 people in south of France, next to Carcassonne at the Spanish border. And I did my childhood there. Then I went to school to study to be a chef. I didn't do well in school after middle school. High school was difficult for me, so I changed path and I went on to study culinary. Did my studies, went to study hospitality business, opened a restaurant in south of France, and I got lucky enough to be hired by the Ritz-Carlton company here
Mm,
in Half Moon Bay, California. This is how I came in the States in, I guess, 2001, and started as a chef, and then went on the side of restaurants, and was a bar manager, banquet director, director of restaurants, worked in the US, in Portugal, and in 2008, 2009, it was time for me to do a change. During all this time working in hospitality business, I really liked the job, but I was dealing, like I was since I was a child, with a lot of anxieties, depression, anger, self-directed anger. And because in the business it's always available, I recognize a tendency to go toward alcohol a
mm,
bit too much. So it became clear that at some point things were not healthy for me. In 2008, the market went down, and it happened that I wasn't, how can I say that, in in congruence with the company anymore, with the policy that were being made at that time. So it was for me an opportunity to stop what I was doing and go back to France to study something that has been interesting me, which was emotions. And why did it interest me? First, because myself, I uh, I went through therapy, I went through many workshops, but I couldn't find a way to resolve what I was feeling. I was very good at controlling it. No one
mm,
knew what I was struggling with, but it was still eating me inside. And also, I had the opportunity to manage a lot of people, about 250 people. And you can see that in a workplace, you don't actually manage people, you manage their emotions. You
mhm,
have to understand what they like to do, with who they like to work, what scare them, what make them feel uncomfortable. So it's a whole chess game playing with, not playing with people emotion, but understanding people emotion in order to ease them so they can do, so they can be the best of themselves in what they have to do. So I went back to France in 2008, 2009, and starting study somatic therapy. And that was the beginning of a personal path, so to speak, in first studying somatics and then going into neurosciences. And for me, what was important was to understand how the brain constructs emotion. Because at first, when I was doing just somatic therapy, we were having some great results, but it wasn't clear why uh, doing what we were doing was resolving the emotions that people were bringing to sessions. And little by little, with the help of Dr. Jacques Fumex in France and us building the Emotional Health Institute, we got to understand how the brain constructs emotion. And it's not our own understanding. It's mostly through the work of Lisa Feldman Barrett out of Boston
Mhm.
and a theory of um, predictive predictive emotion that really shined a light on how the brain constructs emotion and how we can use this theory to really be impactful in resolving debilitating emotional patterns.
That's so fascinating because I think we don't really think about how that our brain constructs emotions, right? Based on sort of our past, experiences with things. I think for most people, and me too, really, until I started reading through your work, was like emotions are just what they are. They just sort of emerge in us as they are, but that's not true, is it? Like the brain actually creates them. Can you share a little bit more about that process?
Yes, we know today how the brain constructs emotion, and maybe it is going to evolve as we research, and we only know what we know, right?
Mm.
There's a lot that we don't know. We mostly don't know anything really, but anyway. Um, uh, so what I can tell you about how the brain constructs emotion is quite simple. There is a couple of things you have to keep in mind. Number one, the brain is an amazing machine to predict. The brain constantly predict. You can see that, for example, when you eat a food that you previously eaten, let's say an apple. If you had a Granny Smith apple before, you had an experience, you had the acidity, you had the crunchiness, the juiciness. After this one experience, next time and every other time when you're going to take an apple, before biting the specific type of apple, you're going to predict, you're going to know exactly what taste you're going to encounter during this experience. The prediction is
Mhm.
happening. Even when we drink, let's say we go for, I don't know, a jogging, and we come home, we're thirsty. We open the fridge, we have some water. We know when we're not thirsty anymore. However, it takes 30 minutes for the body to digest, to take in the water. Your brain predicts exactly how much water you need to drink in order not to be thirsty anymore.
Wow.
We constantly predict. Uh,
Mm.
So we have to keep that in mind. Another thing that we need to keep in mind when it comes to building emotion is that we know today uh, what is at the origin of our debilitating emotional pattern. At the origin of every single one of our debilitating emotional pattern is always an instant of trauma.
Mhm.
Now, what is trauma? A trauma is an instant that holds too much stress, physical or emotional, for us to take on at the instant when we experience it. That's it. So a traumatic instant for a newborn is going to be very different from a traumatic instant for a 45-year-old.
Mhm.
But that's all it is. And to be very precise, it is not the trauma, so to speak, that is going to create a pattern. It is there are the moments, plural, of dissociation happening during a traumatic event.
Mm.
Mm. That's what's going to be the seed for later on a potential debilitating emotional pattern. I'm going to give you a couple of numbers here. What you and I, we are capturing consciously right now is about 2,000 bits of information per second, processed consciously at a speed of about 100 to 100 to 150 miles per hour. That's
Wow.
conscious.
Right.
Uh, Subconsciously, at the same time, our brain has a potential to gather 400 billion bits of information per second and to
Mm.
process it at a speed of 150,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
So to give you a scale, you see a marble, that's the conscious. You see Everest, Mount
Mhm.
Everest, that's the subconscious. This is
Yeah.
the type of scale we are dealing with here.
Wow.
Most of the time, the prefrontal cortex is filtering information. So we're not bombarded by 400 billion bits of information per second. If not, we couldn't have this conversation.
Right.
So the prefrontal cortex create a filter so we can navigate society, so to speak.
Mm. Mm.
However, when we have an instant of dissociation, the prefrontal cortex, the conscious mind, we could say, shut down. So we do not suffer too much during this instant of trauma.
Mhm.
But when the conscious shut down, the subconscious open up. There's no more filter. Imagine a whirlpool opening, right? When there's
Right.
dissociation, your subconscious gather all the information available around you. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, the shape, the texture, everything at a very, very high definition, extremely fast, but in a way that is absolutely non-logical, non-linear, is just a chaos of information recorded. The subconscious is also recording the physical sensation that you're feeling right at that instant. So
Mm.
imagine a whirlpool open out to the elements and in to the inner world. And this is happening for each one of our dissociation. Now, um, why did I make a difference earlier between trauma and dissociation? It is because if I'm being sexually abused for, let's say, 5 minutes, during those 5 minutes, you think I'm going to dissociate only once? No. During those 5 minutes, I'm going to in and out, in and out, in and out. That's one of the
Mm.
reasons why with EmRes, we never talk about a traumatic event. There's no point in bringing a client in trauma because the traumatic event as a whole doesn't really give us the essence of the pattern we are aiming to resolve. Do I make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's fascinating.
So this happens, right? We experience tenth and tenth on trauma of trauma in our life from the moment we're conceived in utero, at birth, first days of life. I actually believe, and that's according, it's not only a belief, it's according to a study
Mhm.
made by Boris Cyrulnik in 2023, I believe, called the first 1,000 days. The
Yeah.
first 1,000 days of life is a, an amazing, so to speak, garden for trauma, right? Because we're so vulnerable. In a
Mm.
way, we were born 12 months too early. Here, I can
Mhm.
refer you to a study by Charles Bluestone. We, in a way, we finish our gestation out of the womb.
Yeah.
During the first year of life, we are completely vulnerable. Look at any other mammals out there.
Yeah.
Horses walk. Dogs are born blind, but they can still crawl to their mother to eat. We are completely vulnerable during
Mm.
this first 1,000 days of vulnerability from conception. There's a lot of potential for quote unquote traumatic events, for high
Right.
stress event, too hot, too cold, too hungry, too alone, etc. Anyway, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit. When we have an instant of dissociation, the brain gather all the information in and out and then record it. Later on, when the body or the brain is exposed to one or several elements, what we will call stimuli, one or several elements that were present during a past instant of dissociation. When the brain recognizes one or several elements present now and that were present during a past time of dissociation, your brain is going to instantly predict what physical sensations you're about to feel based on
Mhm.
what you felt during the specific dissociation.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah.
Just like with the apple, right? To predict.
Mhm.
And when you expose, it doesn't matter if you recognize those elements or not. Most of the time, we don't. huh?
Mhm.
Yeah. When we expose to those elements, to the stimuli, and the brain predict what physical sensation we're about to feel, the brain is going to actually generate those physical sensations. Those
Mhm.
physical sensations, we call that interoception.
Right.
What is interoception? Interoception are the physical sensation that let us know how we feel.
Mm.
This physical sensation that we feel, letting us know that we feel an emotion, is nothing else but an interoceptive prediction from your brain based on a stimuli happening in your environment, outside or inside. It can be a symptom. A pain can be a stimulus as well.
Right.
And so that's it. In a way, this is how the brain constructs emotion in a nutshell.
Wow. That's amazing. That's such a great explanation. So fascinating. And so what do we do with this? How do we begin to unwrap that? And I love how your methodology doesn't require the person to go back into the trauma because sometimes I think looking backwards into our trauma can re-traumatize us. You know,
Absolutely.
if there's a way to release it out of the body, out of the mind without re-experiencing it, I think that's really good. So
Absolutely.
what happens next? How do we begin to unwind this?
Okay, it's a great question. First, I like to say that we cannot heal trauma. Trauma cannot be healed because trauma happened. The
Mhm.
only thing we can heal are the wounds that the trauma created in our life. So where are the wounds? The wounds are happening now in our life today. So it's always accessible. As you said, there's no need to go back to the trauma. It's not where the key is.
Right.
It's not where the key is. So how do we do? Well, this is the situation. Every time we feel an emotion in our life, anxiety, PTSD, anger, whatever it is, every time we feel an emotional difficulty in our life, we control it. We've learned to control it since we were a little child. First our parents, then education, sometimes church, and with the best intention. Right? I have a 5-year-old, and at school they teach her to regulate her emotion. You know,
Right.
deep breath, blow the candle. We learn
Mhm.
emotional regulation.
Mm.
Emotional regulation control the emotion.
Right.
So how do we control our emotion? Breath, stretching, intellectualization, you name it, addictions, anything. We have a wonderful battery to regulate our emotions. Some are healthy, such as breathing. Some are unhealthy, such as smoking, drinking, porn, etc.
Mm.
But we always control our emotion. And that's the problem. Every time we control, every time we shut down this interoceptive prediction, the brain takes it as if he or she controls it, is because there is an actual danger. So we're going to repeat the loop of prediction.
Mm.
To resolve a debilitating emotional pattern is not complex. All we've got to do is when we feel an emotion, is to make sure we're in a safe place to move our attention to the physical sensations happening in our body at that time, the physical sensations, the interoceptive prediction, and to feel this prediction until the end without interacting with it, without stopping, without trying to relax it, without trying to do anything. An emotion lasts in the brain between 2 and 90 seconds, never more.
Mhm.
We stay in a funk sometimes for hours or days because either way we keep on thinking about the same thing, or as human beings, we build emotion upon emotion. We say something, then we mad at ourselves, then we feel guilty, then we feel shame, etc., etc. So we feel in a funk sometimes for days in a row because we keep on thinking and building emotions. But that's the thing, right? If we want to resolve an emotional difficulty, we have to tackle it one at a time. When we start feeling an emotion, we don't want to understand, to try to understand why. We can if we want to, but that's not emotional resolution. If we want to resolve it, as soon as we notice that we're in a funk, before taking any action, all we got to do is to feel the physical sensations happening in our body. And those physical sensations are going to start moving, evolving, changing, transforming. It is a prediction. These physical sensations are going to move inside of us for 2 to 90 seconds, never more. At the
Mm.
end of the prediction, your brain is going to anticipate to be hit by some kind of danger. At the end of the prediction, obviously, if you're in a safe place, nothing happens to you. You're safe and sound. If at the end of the prediction, you're safe and sound at that very second, your prediction will be updated.
Mm.
That means that this emotion, what was taken by your brain as a stimulus, as a sign of danger, is now integrated as a non-event.
Wow. That's
And this,
so contrary to so much of what we do in modern psychology, right? Where we
uh,
think about our feelings, we analyze our feelings, we talk about our feelings, all we do all those things, and I think there is some value in those sometimes so we can see the patterns, but this is a really like letting the physicality of it play out without interrupting it completes the cycle. I think this is also what animals do, right? Like animals
correct? It's
allow it to allow that process to complete without stopping it with our mind.
It's exactly what animals do. You're absolutely right. At the
Yeah.
Emotional Health Institute, we work with veterinarians and ethologists to understand this side of emotions, you know? And what they
Yeah.
notice is like there's 3 types of mammals that hold on to trauma: humans, pets, and some farm animals in a lower way.
Mhm.
And
Right.
what is a commonality to those 3 types of mammals? It's control. We control our youngs, we control our pets, and we control, in some cases, our farm animal. Our need to control stop this natural capacity for emotional resolution.
Mm,
This is why in the wild there's no such thing, right? It's like you see after something traumatic happening to an animal in the wild, they shake it and then they're fine. They
right.
learn from the experience. They do not
Yeah.
hold on to it. They integrate the experience into the entirety of their life.
Hmm, fascinating.
And one thing about, and then I know I talk a lot, so I should have, but when people say you cannot resolve an emotion in 90 seconds, in 3 minutes, of course you can. Look, this is the same principle as learning. If there is a new ice cream shop happening down the street, and I go on to have an ice cream, it's a new ice cream shop and there's no labels. There's just like a pink batch, a white batch, a brown batch, etc. And I decide to take some pink ice cream because I'm assuming it's strawberry. If the person gave me a scoop of the pink ice cream, I go outside, I take a bite, and pwah, it tastes like smoked salmon. How many spoon of this ice cream I'm gonna need to know that in this specific store, the pink stuff is smoked salmon? One. It takes me 1 second to update my prediction forever. 1 second.
Mm,
Now, this is not going to be a trauma. So it's going to be integrated in my whole life. This experience is going to inform me. Next time I go in a store and there's no label, I'm going to remember this experience and I'm going to ask what is the flavor before I buy it
right.
because it's integrated in my life. It became part of the spectrum of my life.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of mysticism about emotion. uh, A
Mm.
prediction can be updated in a matter of minutes if it is well done.
Wow, that's so fascinating. So I'm so curious about like how people can do this. Is this something that you can learn on your own to do? Do you need to work with a practitioner? Like if somebody who's listening to this wants to try it, what do we do?
So um, in my view, in our view, and the Emotional Health Institute, emotion lays on 3 levels. Conscious, that's the anxiety, the anger, what is in our face, so to speak. Unconscious, that's the emotion. If we want to look into them, we can find them, but we don't like them because they do not fit with the person we want to be in life. Uh, these are the shame, the guilt, the resentment, all these things. And then there is subconscious. For the conscious emotion, we can resolve them, most of them, by ourselves. For that, we're teaching self EmRes, which we teach people specifically how to do it.
Mm,
So, in a nutshell, and I really encourage you to take a full class. It's an hour and a half. It's free or $8 between $0 and $8. It's every month. We have a wonderful practitioner teaching them every month, and some others all across the USA. Take the whole class. It's definitely worth it. In a nutshell, how do you do it for yourself? First of all, you need to recognize that you feel an emotion. And you need to take action as soon as you recognize the emotion. You don't want to stay with the emotion for a long time because when you stay with the emotion for a long time, it's an accumulation of emotion. You want to get in, you want to start your EmRes at the beginning. You notice that you feel an emotion. Okay. First thing you're going to do is closing your eyes. Closing the eyes is most important, not so much to close out the stimuli, but you need to be able to close your eyes and feel comfortable to close your eyes. That's something we learn from animals. The first sign of fear in a mammal is that we stop blinking. Horses, cows, dogs, humans. So if you're in a place that you cannot close your eyes without wandering around, your body doesn't feel safe. So you feel an emotion, you need to be able to close your eyes and not worry about anything. The next step is you're going to move your attention to your flesh, to your physical sensations. You're going to have to feel 2 to 3 sensations at once, not one, 2 to 3. It's important because if you only feel one sensation, your mind still has room to think.
mm,
You've
mm,
got to overwhelm your cognitive with the sensations. And then the most difficult is you have to keep on feeling. Feeling is an action. If you stop feeling, you're going to stop thinking or you're going to be distracted. You've got to feel. So you keep on feeling, keep your attention in, and your entire body as the sensations change. They might be uncomfortable. They will not last longer than 90 seconds. If you don't take a breath, if you don't stretch, you don't try to understand, full attention, intense attention until the sensations abate. When the sensations abate, open your eyes.
wow, so fascinating. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it
Please
when
do.
we Yeah, when we end our time today, which we have to do soon, I'm sorry to say. So, if people wanted to find a practitioner or learn more about this, how could they learn more about EmRes?
So the best way is to go to the emotional health. So emotionalhealthinstitute.org. They can also go to emres.com. It goes to the same place. And there they will
Mhm.
see a list of trainings. They will find our certified practitioners. They can reach out for questions. And they will find as well the free trainings that I just told you about.
Great. So I'm assuming that if people have like, serious trauma, they probably need to work with a practitioner to help
Correct.
with really clear out the subconscious parts that
Correct.
you might not be able to do on your own. Yeah.
Correct. Um, for anything that feels heavy, that feels too much, for anything that is unconscious or subconscious, work with a practitioner.
Mhm.
It will be life changing. It will be very efficient.
Wow. Mhm.
I can only advise it, obviously. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Cedric, for sharing, for creating, being a part of creating this beautiful modality. It's so incredible. It seems life changing. I can think of so many people who would benefit from it, including myself.
I
So
think we
thank
can
you.
do. Yeah, all do.
Everybody, yeah, should do it. So thank you so much for your work in the world. And thank you so much for being here today, too.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for giving us a voice.
Yeah. And thanks all of you guys for tuning into this fascinating conversation. If you're feeling like that moves you, I really hope you hop over to that website and check it out because you're gonna, this is work that really needs to be in the world. And I want to thank you all for joining us today. If you want to find me, you can find me at lisacampion.com. I work with psychics, healers, and empaths, helping them step into their gifts because I think the world needs all the healers it can get. And that's my jam right there. So I want to thank you for being with us in this conversation where that's what we're doing, healing the planet one person at a time right here on the Empower channel.